Hello and welcome to another episode of God's Own Scale TV. Yes, 2 episodes in 2 days. This is absolutely phenomenal production work. Okay, so I ended the first episode where I painted this unit of Union Infantry, where I'd left the basing at this stage. But I thought what I'll do is a video just showing you the whole basing process, because Baccus very kindly, out of the goodness of their hearts, have a basing system with which to base their beautiful little figures with. Now this is to achieve a standard of basing that is good enough to adorn any war games table and any convention game or any magazine. And look at this, this is lovely, isn't it, with a bit of a twig there as a log with a American Civil War base and a couple of trees in the background. So this just shows you that with a bit of imagination how far you can take it. But what I'm going to show you, I'll take you to this standard here, which is just lovely, where you've got the earth underneath and the grass coming through on top. Which is the sort of basing standard these days for gaming. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It's what we see in all the magazines and seen as the sort of standard method of basing. So Baccus produced this basing system for you, which includes some PVA. It might come in it might actually come in one of these pots or one of these tubes. There's the foundation wash, which is a lovely brown wash that through not osmosis. Anyway, it sinks into the sand, as you'll see, and spreads, and it gives that nice covering, for which you then do some successive layers of dry brushing with the base, mid and top coat, and finally of course add in some static grass. And I'll show you 1 or 2 embellishments that we can do on top of that as we go. But what we'll do first of all is show you how to add the sand to the base. And of course, sorry, it comes with sand and the basing kit comes with the basing sand and some static grass as well. I've decanted mine in from the bag into this pot here, which just makes it a lot easier. So what we're going to do is, and again, sorry to interrupt, there are instructions here. We're going to follow these instructions to the letter. So we prepared the base, which is this lovely brigade of Union troops. They're at this stage here. And what we're going to do now is add the sand. And that's just a simple matter of getting an old brush and blobbing the PVA on. Now you can water the PVA down a touch to help it flow. I quite like mine to be thicker. I'd rather mine to be thicker than thinner, because it will help the sand that we put on will then sink into the PVA and set like absolute concrete actually. And it does help just to hide the ridge of the figure base, or the level of the figure base. So it's not really a problem, to be honest, but it's just something that I do. So you can see now there's this gap down the line of 2 figures. So what I'll do is get some PVA on the brush, start at this end, and just have that one confident sweep. That wasn't so confident, was it? There you go, down there, and that'll be enough to get the sand down there. And then finally across the back of the base as well. It's a bit of a genius move really from Baccus to produce this, because basing for 6mm figures can be just as important as the painting. So when we hold the figures up like this, we can see just what nice sculpts these figures are. But from this range, sorry, this range over here, it's the basing that will catch the eye first before you look at the figures. And of course, a nice base is half the trick of creating that illusion to be that we're looking at something more than it actually is. So when you dip it into the sand gap, make sure you get a good covering. You might have one or two gaps. Some people might leave the base in the sand actually for a few minutes. I never bother, but you can do that. But always run your thumb along the edge to get rid of any extra sand that might have accumulated, because that will look quite nasty and untidy. Okay, so there we go. We just leave that to dry now, because the next stage is going to be to add a very runny, watery wash onto it, so we don't want that sand coming away. And through the miracles of modern video making, our base is now nice and dry. It's quite warm. I've just run it under the hairdryer to assist with the drying time. But okay, so here we've got, this is the funniest bit really. Love adding a good dollop of this onto a base, and you'll see what I mean. I think it's called capillary action, as you'll see when I put the wash onto the base, how it'll run. So there you go, you can just see it spreading out. There you go. So I generally always start at the top and then run it down. Again, don't need to be really too careful actually with this, because it's a brown wash at the end of the day, and if some brown wash gets onto the shoes or the legs of these Union troopers, well, it'll just look like they've had a hard day's marching. Don't get too much on there, obviously you don't want to go silly with it, but you don't have to be incredibly precise. So just dollop it in there. I think this pack that Peter sells is something like £19–20, but the number of figures that you can base with it is substantial, and there are refill packs of either the wash, the sand, or all the component bits you can buy separately. But there you go, that's washed. Didn't take too long at all. And if you're knocking out large armies, then you want a quick, straightforward method for basing your troops. And again, I keep plugging Per Broden's work, but he is pretty much the standard to be that has been set. And if you look at his bases, they're all very much of a similar method to this. I think he uses slightly different shades, and perhaps a couple of different shades on the groundwork, and for the grassing some different shades. But if you look at some of the battles that he's put on, the large battles of the Great North War, they're really impressive, and you can't overestimate the power of a decent base. So this pack that Baccus do, the Baccus Basing System, is that one-stop shop. For the hobby veterans out there, you've more than likely already got all the requirements you need, all the product that you need for it. But somebody new into the hobby, new into 6mm, I'd highly recommend it. And once again, we're back with that wash now nice and dry. So to the first, we'll refer actually, shall I refer to this? So we're at this stage now where the foundation wash has been applied, and as Peter says here, this will seep into the sand and provide a good strong foundation colour for the subsequent dry brush coats. I'm going to start off with the pot labelled base coat, which we will lightly dry brush over the sanded areas, aiming to catch the surface and projections of the texture rather than add a dense layer of paint. So this one will go over pretty much the whole of the base and be the thicker, or sorry, the most prominent colour. So dry brushing, I'm sure everybody knows what a dry brush is, but it's about getting most of that paint off your brush and then drawing it across the sand so that only the very tops, sorry, the very top of the sand is caught and the brown still shows underneath. And you do this really to taste, so if you think it's too dark, add a bit more. If you think you've gone too heavy on it, you could always reapply the wash again. So that's that bit I said about in between. You're not really going to see that very much, but it does just bear having that slight dry brush ran down it, just to give that illusion that it's been based. And again, if you do catch the trousers or the shoes of these figures, then it doesn't matter that much. So you can see the difference. Let's show you the control piece, which was the figures I painted yesterday. You can see the difference there with that ochre-y, dusty yellow colour added to it. So quick clean of the brush, and then simply get the mid coat, and we're going. This is going to be less. There's going to be less of this than the original, so sort of sparingly adding this, and again just have that one run down between the figures. I think we'll just have a touch more than that. There we go, that satisfies me. That's a more subtle shade, and in fact possibly you could miss that one out, but I quite like having both on there. And then finally the top coat. Now this is obviously the brightest coat, you're going to see the most of, but the most sparingly used, if you like. So it's a really fine, I like, because I don't want it to look like in the desert. You go a lot more, you go a lot stronger if you're in the desert. But there we go. So we are at that stage there, which is picture number 6. So very quick, and simple. You know, it's really a couple of minutes work, the dry brushing, but well worth the effort. So there is the discussion now as to whether you paint the base edge at this point or after. I usually paint it after. Peter in the box, I think it's gone for a green, which helps it stand out. I usually just go for a very dark brown or even black, to be honest, on the base edge, but that's just a matter of taste. So we come back to the trusty old PVA. A bit more than that there, and I don't use an expensive PVA, obviously. The one that I had off Peter I've run out of some time ago, so I just use this Get Creative PVA glue, ideal for decorating cards and wargame bases, although they don't highlight the wargaming benefits. Now for this I'd use a cocktail stick or something, or a very old brush, and again this is just to taste, you know, how much grass you want showing on your figures. But having had that discussion on Twitter last week, I think it was, where I was sort of downplaying this method of basing, I've sort of fallen back in love with it again, which is, it's my prerogative. We can all change our minds, can't we? And just that bit there, just going to drag it down the middle, so a little of the static grass will catch there, and a little bit across the back before we start sprinkling. Now Baccus do a tool called the Uff Puff, which as I say, I've lost and I'm not quite sure where it's gone. It'll be in here somewhere, but I just can't put my hand to it at the moment. But the Uff Puff is essentially a little bellows tool that you put the static grass in with a little nozzle, and you squeeze it like this, and what it does is create a bit of a static charge as it lands, as the grass lands on the base, and makes it stand up. The next best method I can recommend to you is tapping the base like that. It's not going to be the same effect at all, but it might just get the grass pointing in the right direction. But there you go, look at that. That's a base of Union Brigade, based up in the Baccus style. I'm rather quite chuffed with that. I'm just going to paint the rim of the base. I use these quite a lot for terrain and bits of figures that projects that don't need quality acrylic paint, but they're cheap, about £2, and they do the job beautifully. So don't always go buying well, that wasn't called for. My base fell off. Now that's never happened before. Bear with me. So that was interesting. For some time now I've been using PVA to stick my figures to the MDF, and the bond has always been pretty strong, but I've obviously just lent on that a little bit too heavy and it came away. But no harm done, it's back on now. So now I'm just going to give this edge of the base a quick brush just to tidy it up. I do think this is really worth the effort. I think untidy base edges are the bane of an otherwise well painted unit. But there we go, that is done. Simple as that. Whoop. Let me do that properly. Okay, professionalism in video making, not a highlight of mine, but there you go. You can see how quick and easy that was to get a base to that standard. I think you'll agree matches what it says on the tin, and that's achieved just through the products that come within the Baccus Basing System. Get on it.